Main event, 12 rounds, light heavyweights. Your ring officials assigned by the Meshantucket Pequot Tribal Nation Boxing Commission, Chief Physician, Dr. Michael Schwartz. Your judges at ringside are from Boston, Mass, Don O'Neill, from Brick, New Jersey, Tommy Kazmarek, and from Providence, Rhode Island, Clark San Martino. Your referee for this event, world-renowned Frank Cappuccino. Introducing now the principals first. In the blue corner to my left, wearing the black trunks, gold trim, with a professional record of 28 victories, 8 defeats, 1 draw. He has 24 wins by way of knockout. He now boxes out of Boston, Massachusetts. Here is Greg the Nightmare Thadzi. His opponent in the red corner, wearing the black sequin trunks, his professional record, 54 victories, 3 defeats, 2 draws. He has 35 wins by way of knockout. He hails from Ann Arbor, Michigan, a former 3-time champion of the world, James Lights Out Toney. 12 rounds, light heavyweights.
Great. Good evening, gentlemen. You were both given your instructions. Protect yourself at all times. Touch gloves. Touch gloves.
So already there's a little bit of consternation between James Toney and Drake Thadzi. Toney, trained by Freddie Roach, made his mark as a middleweight.
A very good middleweight.
Now has eaten his way up into the light heavyweight and beyond. But he is a fast starter in his bouts.
Toney was at one point on just about everybody's best top 10 pound for pound list. Had great skills. Fought some good fights until he ran into Roy Jones Jr., but very talented at 160 and 168.
Strange, but he's never been the same since that Roy Jones fight. Now you see Toney here getting off the mark quickly. He's a guy that fought them all. He won his title against Michael Nunn with a terrific left hook when he was trailing badly on points in the 11th round. Had a draw and a win against Mike McCallum back in those days.
When McCallum was a good fighter.
McCallum was a very good fighter. Prince Charles Williams.
Crashing knockout in the 12th round.
James Toney during the heyday, the early 90s, was pretty much the standard by which champions should be measured by in terms of being active. He was always in the gym, then fighting and getting better, but in recent times has not shown that same form.
Good jab, control the ring when he's moving. Sometimes, as you said, he put on a lot of weight and he just seemed to slow down. And I think a lot of fighters, they move up in weight, figure it's easier for them to make weight, but you also lose some speed. The opponent you're going up against can take a better punch, and you got to work harder.
And as fighters get older, they don't want to work hard to get the weight down. So rather than work down to a limit, they stay where they are and fight at that level, but they haven't worked up to it really. So Thadzi in tight here on James Toney.
That might be his best game plan, to stay close to Toney, smother him, don't let him get out. But when Toney's on a roll, he can fight inside or out.
Final minute of round 1. And James Toney has a sneaky left hook. And some good hand speed there by Toney. But he's been much more economical with his punches in recent years.
Not that all-out, straight-ahead style. He picks his punches, picks his spots, counter-punches a lot, gets inside, he tries to stay busy. Thadzi not doing anything right now.
Except smothering James Toney. And the first round going in the books. Toney with some good crisp punches here to end round 1. Frank Cappuccino has to stop these guys from doing more. We'll listen in on the corner of James Toney.
On your left. All right, how you feel, champ? All right. You seen the openings out there, okay? Now, when you go that left hook to the body, I want you to come back to the chin with it, okay? What? All right? It's there for you, all right? James, keep working over and under in this guy, okay? You hitting that left hook to the body here?
Here's Toney with his back against the ropes, but he can still fight off the ropes. There's a short right hand and another. You got to keep throwing punches when the opening's there. Makes Thadzi miss.
And James Toney, one of the best at that. Freddie Roach, a good fighter himself during his day, and then has trained the likes of Virgil Hill, who owns a victory over Thadzi. Thadzi coming in 28-8-1. And when motivated, can really get it together. Glad you're with us in Ledyard, Connecticut. I'm Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page. James Toney is trying to work his way back toward another opportunity with Roy Jones and needs to win in marketable fashion to show that he's worthy.
A couple of knockouts here and there against quality opponents would help. I think Toney's still a dangerous opponent. A lot of guys don't want to meet him. Thadzi should just lean on Toney. He's a natural light heavyweight. Should make Toney work, push him away.
The question is, how hungry is Toney? Does he still want to do this? Given the dedication he did in years before.
You mean hungry in the ring or out of the ring?
Good distinction to be made. I don't think he's hungry outside of the ring. He's, according to many people, very well fed. But James Toney has the ability if he can get rid of that. And the problem is, yeah, it is a shame to see that happen to him because he had a fire underneath him that was one of the best in boxing.
Had an attitude, and I don't know what to make of it. He's only 28 years old. So he's still got a chance to save his career by showing people he's that guy that had those big punches at 160 and 168.
Has he been a victim of early burnout? Toney with many big fights back-to-back.
Good left by Toney. He's controlling the action in the middle of the ring. Just has to keep throwing the punches.
Toney popping inside here with Thadzi trying to save some ground in a sense.
Don't give him anything.
Toney fighting 5 or 6 times a year throughout the early 90s. Victory over Iran Barkley, Tony Thornton. Lost to Montel Griffin, a couple of those. Then kept coming up in weight. Has shown flashes of consistency, but needs an entire performance.
He's gone through a whole lot of trainers, too, since the Roy Jones loss.
Different managers. Jackie Callan no longer with him. She was there for a long time. So it's definitely a different life for James Toney. And he has a stubborn opponent in front of him in this bout.
Thadzi just staying right there, trying to smother Toney's punches and trying to fight back.
So the end of round 2. Thadzi against James Toney. Toney has had an up and down career the last couple years. Of course, as mentioned before, one of the tops in the profession. Maybe Toney's been his own worst enemy.
I think one of Toney's big problems, even when he was in his heyday in 160 and 168, he didn't fight for the entire round, but he did such a good job and he built up such a lead, he could coast a little bit. But as he's gone up in weight, he still kind of coasts and doesn't do enough, just barely wins the round. He had problems with Montel Griffin, losing a couple of times because he wasn't busy enough. Against Thadzi, he's got to be busy all the time.
And Thadzi saying that throughout his career he's been the victim of the wrong fight at the wrong time. Really, that opponents have been dodging him. And to some extent, part of that is true because if you don't have the rating of the marquee, what is the sense of fighting a guy?
Sometimes you can be a little bit too good for your own good. Who wants to fight you when they're looking for an easy win and know this guy may beat me and I get out of the title picture? I don't want any part of this guy.
And if I beat Drake Thadzi, people will say, well, what's the big deal? He wasn't rated. So he looks at this fight with James Toney as a chance to get into contention, to make a name for himself. And he's attacked this fight with that in mind. And he's right on top of Toney here, who uppercuts and continues to use the ropes.
Now, Toney is very effective fighting off the ropes, but sometimes you could say that's the look of a lazy fighter who just wants to fight off the ropes instead of getting into the middle of the ring. And that's where Toney used to be effective. He could dominate out there.
Fire the big hook. Toney is trying to save his gas tank as he fires these punches while on the ropes, and we'll see what type of an opportunity this presents Thadzi. Now, if you're Thadzi, you look at this and say, well, Toney came up in weight. This is my territory.
You should be leaning on him. You should be winging punches. You should be going to Toney's body because that could be his weakness. But you're not finding out if he did the work or not by hitting his body to see if he can take a shot.
Thadzi with a nice looping right hand. And Drake Thadzi starting to land some of the telling blows from outside. Toney doing good work inside, but Thadzi from long range is starting to score.
I think he's doing well so far this round. Very close, but Thadzi seems to be controlling it, but there he takes a good right hand from Toney.
Crisp right hand from Toney, who lands another one, but at this higher weight class, it does not have the effect of punches in some other weight classes for him. And so, Thadzi is durable, standing right in front of him. And round 3 has been a good exchange by both fighters in the final minute.
Bell!
800 kilometers from your driveway. 30 kilometers from the border. 3 meters from home. Recreation vehicles. Wherever you go, you're always at home. Call today for a free brochure or visit an RV dealer near you.
Large. Cold. Faceless. Why trust big corporations with something as important as your insurance? If you want a specialist who will work for you personally, your best insurance is an insurance broker. Look for this symbol.
Here we see Drake Thadzi working on Toney, chopping right hand, just keeps on coming. He's trying to keep busy. Toney's right in front of him, so he might as well throw the punches.
Let's go, red corner. Let's go, blue corner.
Toney with the big right hand on Thadzi there. And so we start. Round 4. Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page. Glad you've joined us for ESPN Super Bouts. Light heavyweight battle set for 12 rounds. James Toney looking to carve a path toward Roy Jones. That's all he's been talking about lately. And Drake Thadzi trying to carve a path toward notoriety, period.
A win over Toney is still something to be reckoned with. Toney still has skills. And, you know, he looks pretty quick in there, ducking and moving, throwing punches from different angles, which is a trademark of Toney. He comes from all angles at times. But laying against the ropes is not his style. He wouldn't fight Roy Jones against the ropes. He wouldn't fight any really super fighter against the ropes because that's when you lose points. The guy will just tattoo your body and pull away. Thadzi wants to just stay there and slug with him.
Well, Freddie Roach telling reporters before this that Toney had been running 10 miles a day, and based on where he's in this fight in the corner, not moving at all. You wonder what speed that might have been at, if at all.
I wonder. You stay on the ropes, you have to be able to fight inside, and Toney can, but he's picking his spots. See, he started to spin Thadzi, but he didn't go out to the center of the ring to make him come after him.
Toney pounding the body here. He's given an opportunity because not extending his arms here. Now, if Thadzi does that and makes Toney use the ring, it could be interesting here.
You would think Thadzi would try and go to the center of the ring, step back, and throw a couple of punches. Because Toney is slowly retreating to the ring, to the ropes, every time he gets to the center of the ring.
Come on, baby, let's go.
Toney getting more economical by the minute. Might be the nicest way to say. He's not doing much.
He lands a good punch here and there, but good right hand, but Thadzi's still there.
But these are one-at-a-time shots, and the opponent has time to recover.
There is no follow-up. You're getting hit, and maybe you think, okay, he's going to come up with another punch, but he doesn't. So it gives you a chance to just recoup and fight back. Like right there, that's a good right hand.
And Thadzi doing some of his better work here, as Toney is not firing much. And Thadzi starts to tee off a little bit. A combination by Thadzi. He may be starting to believe he can win this fight.
Just has to be a little more active. Keep throwing those punches.
Well, James Toney has gotten a fast start, but Drake Thadzi is right there.
Bell! Bell!
Look at this. Inca Healer.
Wonder how he'd treat your cold symptoms.
See. Dymatap.
One Dymatap Extend Tab relieves runny nose and nasal congestion for 12 hours, and that's good. Because you never know when you'll need long-lasting cold symptom relief. Doctor recommended Dymatap Extend Tabs. Give yourself some breathing space.
Now what?
Hi, Vince.
Great.
Come on.
So when did a smoker like you become a Stairmaster?
Ex-smoker, 5 weeks ago.
Just like that?
No, slowly, one step at a time.
The Nicotrol Patch, a 3-step program that can help control cravings and wean you off nicotine when you decide to quit.
So, wearing the patch anyplace interesting?
Like you'll ever know.
Look for the special Nicotrol trial offer in stores now. Suddenly it seems the only competition is yourself.
Here's Thadzi working hard, but gets caught by James Toney right hand. Look, his arm's a little bit too low. Toney spins him a little bit. Good uppercut by James.
We start round 5. Well, what would Toney be experiencing here in terms of opposition if Thadzi would jab him?
Just step back, size him up, throw the straight jab. Thadzi trying to smother him right here.
Toney gets a couple shots in on the inside, but it has to be ideal conditions, and you wonder, will Thadzi make an adjustment and force Toney to come to him and use the ring? Will Toney do it?
Funny, you see flashes of the old Toney, combinations to the body, combinations to the head, but at the lower weights, he was staggering his men.
It's a good point, as James Toney finding better chins as he moves up.
Stop punching your bow tie. Step back. I'm looking at you, right?
Toney with the low left hand. Thadzi starts to jab a little bit, then fires a right hand. He's fighting with a little bit more confidence each minute of the fight.
It's funny, in that position, somebody should be throwing a jab first, because both fighters are just standing each other profiling instead of really shooting that jab. If you take a step back, you really do some damage with it. But I think both guys are smothering themselves, and they're just trying to fight on the inside, but they're not really landing aggressive punches. Every once in a while, Toney lands an overhand right.
You see two guys trying to maintain their stamina, so they're fighting in close. Thadzi with some looping right hands, Toney with some powerful shots, but he's a middleweight hitting a light heavyweight here, and that type of thing takes more time to accomplish a good shot.
I think what Toney has lost over the years is just his speed. Guys never saw his punches coming. He threw them so quick, so accurate, and so hard. You put on that weight, you're effective, you land, but you don't buckle the guy's knees. Look, that was a good, solid shot. Two more, and Thadzi stays there.
Thadzi comes back with some of his own, and when you see the dilemma by Toney here, yeah, you can relate. He doesn't look like he should necessarily be up at this weight division. Roy Jones has talked about moving up to heavyweight, but some progressions just don't seem natural. So Toney applying pressure, but Thadzi has been more than willing to answer.
Thadzi is very game. I just wish he would settle on one style, outside or inside.
I'm sure his corner would agree. Round 5 coming to close. We'll be back with more after this.
He coming forward, trying to set up that right hand. He gets caught. Toney very effective at just with a little bit of an angle.
James Toney and Drake Thadzi in round 6, scheduled for 12. Thadzi with a hook, Toney in short. Toney opens up a little bit. Thadzi with the jab. Neither fighter able to sustain the momentum here. It is one of those bouts that is swinging back and forth and is available to be stolen at any moment. Now, that would be good news for Thadzi.
I gave Toney the first 2 rounds. I gave Thadzi the last 3. I thought he was doing enough to out-hustle Toney. Toney's again fighting in spurts, but not enough.
So in your card, Thadzi ahead by a point. Toney with a good crossing right hand. Thadzi getting some shots in, and one of those left hooks looked a little reminiscent of the one Roy Jones used to put Toney on the deck in their 1994 fight. Toney was on an angle and was caught. Now Toney fires back. Good shots here by James Toney.
He caught him flush. Now he seems like he's picking up the point, picking up the pace. Trying to land that one shot right to the point of his chin to see if he could wobble him.
And because Toney can't wobble Thadzi comes back and gets right in Toney's face.
He put his shoulder down, stepped forward, and Toney just kind of flew backwards. I think it's because of Thadzi being a natural light heavyweight. He knows how to muscle guys.
Thadzi looking at this guy coming up into his weight class. And if you're a light heavyweight watching a middleweight come up, you have to salivate. This is not the other guy's territory. This is my territory. And Thadzi is fighting like that. He's protecting his turf.
Seems like Thadzi's picked it up a bit. Using his legs, giving angles, finally using his brain, making Toney come toward him. Toney has been content to go back, sit on the ropes, and fight from there. Here's Thadzi in the middle of the ring, trying to bring Toney toward him so he could throw the jab.
Let him go.
Thadzi working inside. Toney very happy this fight is on the inside. Looping right hand by Thadzi. Toney tries to get some body shots in. And they get working with their hands on the inside. Good exchange. Toney is rocked, and he comes back, but a good right hand in there. So, round 6 has a little bit of drama.
Both of you stop punching. Both of you stop punching.
Toward the tail end.
Bill!
Let's see what advice they give James Toney halfway through this fight.
Deep breath, James. Here you go. Okay, now drive the glove.
Yep.
All right, James. Big deal, baby. After your combination, you can't stay in front of this man, okay? All right? You've got to step off on an angle. You can't move your fights in a straight line. You cannot move straight back, all right? After your combinations, James, you got to step off to the side, okay? All right? Come on, give me. A combination, step off to the side. Let's get that jab going now. You got that double jab and you set the right hand up. Let it go, all right? Come back with your hook, all right? 2 jabs, right hand hook. You got to come back for me, all right? Come on, baby. All right, finish your combination with the hook, all right?
Come on, JT. Here we have Toney. Turns his head a little bit. Thadzi just trying to get one good shot in there. James going backwards.
Toney's corner saying between rounds, throw your combination and then move to the side. I think that's sound advice.
I never saw anybody manhandle Toney like that. It's like Thadzi just walked through him and pushed him back. Toney didn't respond.
And that does or should send the message that you can only use your speed and ability so far as advancement in weight is concerned, and then you hit a wall.
Toney took some good shots from Thadzi in the last round and didn't buckle, but his punches aren't doing any damage either. I mean, they're good, solid shots, but seems like a middleweight hitting a light heavy.
And appearances are not deceiving. That's exactly what we are looking at, a natural middleweight hitting a light heavyweight. They're both at the light heavyweight limit, of course, but Toney is in against a very competitive guy who now fights with the attitude that he can win this.
He's trying. He's coming forward. I think he's a little more effective when he has that distance, so he can set everything up off the jab. He throws some nice chopping punches on the inside, but he's more effective when he's away from Toney.
Well, we don't believe that Connecticut rules outlaw jabbing, but these guys have fought that way.
And Toney's been awkward at certain points, like just there. He bends down and stays down. I guess it's a defensive mode. You duck down, your man can't hit you.
But when he's ducking, he's not firing back. And look at the steam that's come out of the punches of James Toney. Now he hangs on the ropes. He's tired.
But Thadzi coming in. But it looks good. But Toney's not working enough.
Come on out.
Thadzi tries to maul Toney here. Now Frank Cappuccino makes them come all the way out so they can establish something on the outside. Let's see if anything happens here.
Now at this point, you got to work the jab.
It almost appears humorous to hear the corners saying, snap the jab, and then you see the jabs come out. That's not any snap. The corners have to be driving themselves crazy trying to instruct these guys here. Toney lands a couple, especially the corner of Toney, because he has a world of ability. Thadzi is fighting a very inspired battle here.
Thadzi following Toney. Toney just kind of covering up. Takes another good right hand.
Thadzi with a hook. Toney looping right hand. But round 7 will go into the books. Still no knockdowns in this battle.
On the bell.
Thadzi trying to score an upset over James Toney. Thadzi handled by Goody Petronelli. Of course, has had some big name clients. One by the name of
Marbles, something or other.
Some haggler fighter.
Haggler guy.
Some haggler guy. So Goody Petronelli now trying to get some mileage out of Drake Thadzi, and he has him in a position here to fight James Toney. Thadzi doing very well. In fact, Toney, it looks like he's really put a few rounds together here.
I've given him the last 5 rounds. He's controlling the action. He's doing enough inside. Not flashy, not a bunch of punches, but enough to win the rounds. I have him up 68 to 65.
I would agree exactly. As Toney won the early part of the fight, Thadzi came on. Now Toney trying to club with some shots, but he's being pushed around by this man.
He's landing some flush shots. Thadzi just stands there and keeps coming. I wonder how frustrating that is You figure, wait a minute, that punch knocked out some pretty good contenders years ago. What happened?
James Toney being out-muscled a bit here, pushed around.
Step back. Stay off his neck. Stay off his neck.
Frank Cappuccino could either be lecturing or campaigning. We're not sure. The referee seems to have a look on his face of bewilderment.
I always like the amateur rules where a referee can't say anything. He has to point to the infraction.
Not a bad idea.
Good right hand by Thadzi.
Toney starts to come on. Thadzi with the jab. Toney with a chopping right, trying to work inside here on Thadzi. This has been a better round for James Toney, that he's been operating more. Good right hand by Toney, then moves to the angle as his corner suggests, but didn't punch off that new angle.
Just clocked by a right hand by Thadzi.
We see Thadzi not doing as much as he had.
No. He won the earlier rounds because he was busy. But you let Toney throw more punches, he's going to land, he can steal the round.
Toney and Thadzi coming to the final section of round 8. Been a better round for James Toney, a little bit of a turning back the clock. Rounds 1 and 2 were good for him. Thadzi strung a series of rounds together, and here in the 8th, Toney was sharper with his shots, and most likely James Toney will put this round in the bank.
All right, James.
You gotta put it heated up, eh? You cannot lay on the ropes with this guy and let him just mug you in there, okay? You've got to step off to the side and use your angles. After your combinations, you get off your side. Use those legs, okay? Give him water. Use those legs now. Come on, son. All right?
Come on, James. You got a full tank, baby.
You got to double the left hook up, okay? All right? It's right there for you, okay? The 1-2 and the double left hook, all right? He's right there for it.
Come on,
body and head, okay?
Don't let this guy off. Come on, baby.
You got to open up,
too much work in to let him go like this.
All right, this guy cannot fight going backwards. You got to push him back, all right? Come on now. All right? Come on, James.
James Toney getting good advice from Freddie Roach in the corner. Can he parlay that into a victory here? We're starting round 9 from the Foxwoods Casino in Ledyard, Connecticut. This is Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page, James Toney, and Drake Thadzi slugging it out here in the light heavyweight division. Thadzi doing very well after Toney started quickly, and we've got 4 rounds to go.
Every time Thadzi gets close, James Toney bends down. Remember when Roy Jones Jr. fought Toney? Toney bent down. Roy kind of ran into him with a punch, backed him up, and he went down. You got to keep throwing punches at Toney because when he's in that bent over position, he doesn't punch back.
Drake Thadzi came out after the first 2 rounds, had 5 very good rounds. Now he's on the verge here. You've got to think that he's going to step it up a notch. Here's a guy that lost to Adolfo Washington, Ernest Mateen, Virgil Hill, a champion, coached by Freddie Roach, Leslie Stewart. He's fought some big names and then some not big names. Now here's a guy with a chance to score what for him, Toney would be a monumental upset.
It's something to build on. And he has the ability because he's been out hustling Toney. He's been working well on the outside. Pretty good on the inside, but he needs to keep his distance because Toney's, again, fights in spurts. Good right hand by Thadzi.
Shots here by Thadzi, 9th round.
Very active right now. Toney seems to be coasting a little bit. Toney's corner gave him good advice, but he's not following it. No double left hook, no nothing.
They really said he can't fight backing up. They tried to inspire him, but it really has not been working out. What they can't give him is more stamina than he has. And James Toney has not really had a lot of spark since the 3rd round. The one exception was the last round, round 8, and Toney, maybe that took a lot out of him.
And it's funny, his corner said, Tony's corner said you worked too hard for this. I think he could have worked a little harder. Again, laying against the ropes.
This is where Toney was successful early, and where Thadzi would prefer Toney is not, because Toney can land some cheap shots, if you will.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to expend a lot of energy, but can score.
Break. Step back.
Final seconds of round 9. This one was better for Thadzi. Toney did not do a whole lot. We'll see how the judges score it. 3 rounds to go.
Watch that head, man. Bell.
Well, Drake Thadzi may be bordering on a big win. Let's see if his corner agrees.
Good hard round, Drake. 10 round coming up. This is the part of the fight he's going to be getting tired. He's going to try and run a pacing call. And you ain't going to let him, right? All right. Now we're trying for points on. Do those automatics as much as you can when you see him. Yep. Fight the jab a little bit, keep it a distance, pop. You can't hit him in the body, right? Mix him up a little bit. Do those automatics when you're in tight, Drake. It's very important. Enough water? Doing good now. Now you're leading the fight. You took that round. That's a 10.
Here we have Thadzi. He has Toney against the ropes. Just keeps throwing punches. Very awkward right here. Toney goes down. Thadzi tries to reset.
Well, Toney did not do all that much scoring there. Thadzi did most of it. There were some other opportunities for Toney when he was backed up that he scored. But you have to wonder whether the judges will acknowledge what he did off the ropes, depending on their angle. So good action to start round 10 with James Toney and Drake Thadzi. We've seen Toney tire as the rounds go on.
Seems like both fighters are very effective in the middle of the ring. It's Toney who keeps going to the ropes and sitting there, and both fighters tend to smother each other. If I'm Thadzi, I'm not leaving the center of the ring. I'm staying there.
Get out.
Impose your own travel restriction.
Right?
Will not go to the corners. Now, Drake Thadzi on the outside. I would think, at least in our cards, Toney would have a comfortable lead at this point.
I have him ahead 87-84.
Come on now, break. Step back, man.
Doing what he's supposed to do. He's out hustling James Toney, who doesn't want to throw a lot of punches for whatever reason. Maybe he thinks he's winning the rounds as he lands a couple of good shots by just throwing a bunch of punches in a short period of time, and that's it.
Thadzi punching down at Toney here. Toney doing very little in return. As we come up upon the halfway mark of round 10, what had been a fast start for James Toney in this round has been tapering off as Thadzi comes on.
Thadzi should have just pushed him off. He's a bigger man. He's walking Toney around the ring. But if you just push him off, you can hit him with a jab as he straightens up.
Shot by Toney, but we don't see any combination punching by Toney unless it's on the inside and it's easy for him to do. We see the clubbing right hands, but Thadzi answers with 5 or 6.
And Thadzi picked that one off. Toney keeps trying to throw a lot of punches, but he's just not in position to be effective.
All right, my turn. Step back.
Thadzi gets some punching room here. Toney in the corner. And Thadzi has not landed any real substantial shots, whereas Toney landed several flush bombs on the chin of Thadzi, but they did not move the bigger man.
No, keeps coming forward. That's funny. Thadzi lands the punch, but then he stops punching.
Step back. Come on, Drake. Let him out.
Final seconds of round 10. James Toney just not showing the form that would make people feel compelled to set up a match with Roy Jones. And that was his objective coming in.
Bell. Okay, man.
Combinations go. Okay, now that right hand over top, it's landing beautiful. You look for the left uppercut, okay? He's going under the right hand. Put the right hand over in the left uppercut to his chin. You hear me? You've got to bring that back, okay? All right, let's go. You got to bring that left hook back for me, son, okay? All right.
First with your jab, baby. Be first with your jab.
James,
Doing great
2 rounds to go. You need these 2 rounds big, okay? Let's back this guy up. 2 rounds. He cannot fight going backwards. You back him up with that jab, okay? Get the right hand going back with the hook. All right, son?
Come on, James. Let's go to work, baby. Take this shit now.
Come on, James.
We start the 11th round, and James Toney has been able to follow his corner's advice for perhaps the first 30 seconds of a round, and then it's not sinking in.
A lot of information that Freddie Roach gave him. It all made good sense. I get the feeling that Tony's picking what part of that he wants to use.
Maybe he's picking the part of you got him, baby.
I think so.
11th round from the Foxwoods Casino in Ledyard, Connecticut. Dave Bontempo along with Tony Page. Glad you've joined us for James Toney and Drake Thadzi. And James Toney, it would appear at this stage, needs a knockout to get a win.
Thadzi just out-hustling him. He's been very effective when he's kept his distance away from Tony in the center of the ring. Tony's very awkward when he gets close because he starts dipping and going low. Thadzi should just keep throwing punches.
Thadzi leaning on him, Tony firing some shots, and you get the impression that if Thadzi was a few pounds lighter, that maybe these shots by Tony would have more of an effect.
He's landed some flush shots, Tony has, but nothing's really happened.
My turn again.
And Thadzi has been punching over the top and has not necessarily looked sterling here, but he's out-hustled James Toney.
You know, and it's easy to hustle somebody, out-hustle somebody like Tony, who only fights for a short period of time. Because you let him throw his little flurries, then you go back to doing what you're doing like that, throwing punches, pushing Tony back.
James Toney has been in far more crucial situations than Drake Thadzi, but Thadzi tonight is fighting with a certain element of hunger and intensity and the belief that he can pull this off. And even though he's not really getting to Toney that much in this fight, he is scoring. Now, Thadzi comes in here with 24 knockouts and 37 fights. He can throw big punches. He hasn't bothered Toney much, but he is still trying.
Step back. All the way back, all the way back.
He's a guy that's been initiating the action. He's been throwing the punches. He gets Tony against the ropes, and he tries his best to hit him as best he can. Earlier in the fight, Tony was coming on fighting off the ropes, but that's kind of gone. And Thadzi is still effective when he gets Tony against the ropes now.
Thadzi continues to open up, pounding away, putting combinations together. You get a look briefly with Tony about what he should have been doing in this bout, because he goes to the body a couple times and shows a flash of what could have been. We've got one more round to go, Tony and Thadzi.
All right, 3 minutes non-stop, okay? Let those hands go. All right? James, this is your career at stake, okay? You need this round.
It's the last round. We want the last round. You're doing a great job today.
Seconds out. We approach the 12th and final round.
We go to the final round, and the look in both corners from Toney and Thadzi is that they don't want to hear it.
Real pros now here.
Their corners are saying, give me 3 more minutes, and they don't look like they have it in them.
I don't know when's the last time James Toney fought for a full 3 minutes in a round.
And Freddie Roach said, your career is at stake. What he did not say was, you need a knockout.
Yeah.
Hook by Toney. Fires the right hand. And all these punches by Toney are good. The hook, the right cross, but they have to be teamed with consistent work, because these punches, Toney, just don't open up.
No, you throw a flurry and nothing happens, and then you take the next minute off figuring out, okay, how do I throw some more punches or generate more power? And you've been out-hustled. You can't punch when you bend over like that.
You lose a lot of ground in there.
It's funny when you're perceived to have the talent. Good punches by Thadzi. When you're perceived to have the talent and you don't use it.
And James Toney has had that rap against him in recent years. And this may be one where the better fighter on paper did not win.
Thadzi just winging punches right now. They're landing. Looks like he's going for the knockout.
Stop punching. Stop punching.
Thadzi making sure he leaves nothing out there.
Toney came out the first, well, maybe 20 seconds of the round. Looked like a house of fire, and the fire's been doused. Thadzi's the one coming on.
Well, it's like that old phrase, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. And Thadzi is not impressed by Toney's reputation. He's showing all heart and basically out-hustling and out-maneuvering somebody with a lot more credentials.
Thadzi throwing a lot of punches. If he would just step back, you could still hit him with a straight jab. But right now, he wants to throw those clubbing right hands.
These fighters want to get a straight walk back to their stool and this fight to be over. 30 seconds to go. But we see Thadzi trying to hustle a little bit here.
I think he's done enough all fight to steal this from Toney.
I think he has too. And for James Toney, this would be one where he would have to look back and say that he beat himself if he loses.
Break.
So, Drake Thadzi has taken it to the judges. And we will await that verdict.
Very good.
I thought Thadzi did everything he was supposed to do, and he didn't punch a lot, but he was more effective than Toney with his bobbing and weaving and ducking. I gave it to Thadzi, 117-111. I mean, it's a big margin, but I think he did enough to win.
And I gave it to Thadzi by 4 points, with Toney winning round 10, maybe sneaking in a fourth round, but losing it decisively nonetheless.
It's funny when your corner says you're in great shape and you put a lot of work in and you lose, but then what's your excuse now?
How much of that work was great, and everybody should know. Well, for James Toney, you have to wonder what it will take for him to get motivated to go back and find the skills and the dedication he once had.
Yes, these are mine.
You can't say, give me a big payday and I'll perform. It doesn't work like that.
You have to work your way up to that payday, and if not, you can stumble over certain guys.
Toney spent most of the fight just out of position. He kept bending over to the side, and you can't fight from that position because you're like ducking punches instead of fighting back. Here he has a chance. He lands a good punch, stays down, and he lets Thadzi beat on him. He can't punch from down there. He's not even, when he comes up, it's little chopping punches with nothing on it. Leaves himself wide open.
Clubbing shots, and Toney backing up, not getting his full extension in. Flashes of fighting, but not consistency.
Too bad. James Toney was a good fighter at one point.
Probably kicked this one away, but let's hear the official verdict. Drake Thadzi thinks he'll hear the verdict in his favor. He may be right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a majority decision. Judge Don O'Neill scores it 114, a draw. Judge Clark Sammartino scores it 113, and Judge Tom Kazmarek scores it 112 to the winner by majority decision, Drake Thadzi.
So Drake Thadzi pulls off the upset over James Toney. His corner people lift him up. They are deliriously happy. James Toney upset. He let it go. For Tony Page, this is Dave Bontempo saying so long. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.